So the question I pulled for today's session is, what's the borrowed frequency or not self from a technical term when it comes to human design? Theme of each type and why does it matter? Whew, loaded question, but we're going to get into it. Every type has a signpost or a guidepost that says, hey, your energy is being hijacked. And once you spot yours, you'll be able to tell when you start leaking energy, start bleeding energy, and are fighting fights, are fighting battles, are meeting resistance that isn't meant for you. So, when we talk about type and strategy, they're the two of the three most important pieces of your human design, the other being authority. We'll talk about that some other time when that question comes up. But in understanding your type and strategy, this is the tool that allows you to accept yourself and discover your own unique value. Because if you are living correctly according to your type and strategy, all of the other aspects of your design, of your true frequency, of your definition come to life, come oozing out of you um, without you having to do a darn thing. Hi, Laura. It also says my internet is unstable, so we're gonna see how this goes. Um, your type and strategy, when you follow it in its simplicity, allows you to unlock your highest performance and your highest potential. So, what is your type and strategy actually? Um, it's a way of being that aligns your energy to your true frequency, and it supports you in minimizing the resistance you feel. Now, I tend to have a little bit of a contrarian point of view when it comes to the resistance in human design. A lot of people can present it as once you've stepped into your true frequency, you won't meet a lot of resistance. Well, that's not necessarily the point. The point is it's life and you're going to meet resistance, and you're actually not necessarily always going to act or operate correctly 100% of the time because your borrowed frequency never goes away. But your awareness and evolution into it changes so that you don't necessarily meet it the same way, or it doesn't affect you as heavily as it once did when you started your deconditioning process. Um, your type and strategy is a way for your vehicle, your body, your form. It's how it works genetically. Like your type and your strategy is actually tied to your genetics. A lot of what we don't necessarily really cover in human design is the nitty gritty details of how it actually aligns to the 64 genetic codons that exist. But that's kind of boring. We're not going to get into it. And without following your type and your strategy, you can live a life that's unfulfilling. For anybody out there working against yourself and working through your borrowed frequency, will say, oh, yeah, I don't necessarily feel very fulfilled. Your type and strategy also help you to discover your unique self and start to let go of comparison. So, for example, right, there's 70 to 75% of the population is generators. So that means that every generator, from a strategy standpoint, is here to respond. However, every time a generator responds, it's a wildly different experience because the generator energy that I have is very different than the generator energy of my son, which is even different more than the manifesting generator of my other son, right? But so while our strategies are the same, when we follow who we are, we allow that unique true frequency to come alive and really discover who we are. And once we really buy into how our energy is designed to be used to accept ourselves, that's when we can really start to let go of comparison, is to say, oh, okay, well, that's not my journey. That's not what my energy is here to do. That's not what my energy here is to reflect. Laura says, yes, that's what I'm feeling right now in the first year of my journey. It's what has kept me hooked so far. Yeah. Right. It's a lot of times we get so wrapped up in the complexities of human design. Like, what does this gate mean? What does this channel mean? How does it actually work? When really, at the end of the day, when you're first starting your journey, when you're first starting learning your human design and engaging in your experiment, really focus on your type and strategy. Because actually, when you operate correctly, it's also the avenue for your purpose to naturally unfold. So I think I've known my entire life that I am here to be of service. I love being here for other people and supporting them in their journey. But I also have spent a lot of my life uh, in a really competitive environment for myself. Like I'll compete against other people, being like, oh my God, I have to do this or I have to do that, whatever the case may be, when really I'm here to serve. And as I respond more to things, I figure out, oh, well, here's what I can respond to in order to be of service to somebody else. So, following your type and strategy, because my incarnation cross is the right angle cross of service, it allows your natural purpose to unfold, and you don't have to fight so much to figure out, oh my gosh, what is it? What do I do? How do I tap into my purpose? When really it all boils down to type and strategy. And again, it's so simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it is that simple. Your type and your strategy is the only viable solution that allows you to liberate your unique frequency and to show that to the world. When we don't operate correctly, we actually enter into, I'll call it like an unconscious suffering, because we're trying to be who we're not. And so we're stepping into resistance that's actually not meant for us. So following our type and strategy actually is the one avenue that allows us to step into our unique frequency, our unique energy, and say, hey world, here's what I'm here to be. Here's who I'm here's the lesson in how my 1-3 generator energy is here to be used. Right? It's here to really share that with the world. This is the key. Sure, me knowing with my logical energy circulating through my body is like to really know the details, to really understand the details. And sure, they're really important to understand kind of how the life force energies work and how they show up in your life. But if you really truly want to get started, really to enter into transformation, to enter into a new evolution, not necessarily a new evolution, but an evolution of returning home to yourself, following your strategy and authority is the exact thing you can do today. So we're going to walk through each type and really kind of pinpoint what it really means to follow that strategy according to the type, what it looks like to operate from a borrowed frequency and how you get hijacked in that energy, and then some practical tips that you can kind of take away to start your experiment or to continue your experiment based on your type. Okay, we're going to start with manifestors. So I always like to get into the mechanics of how the auras of each type work because it really informs, we're talking about manifestors, how or why the energy works that way. So when we think about manifestors, their auras are closed and repelling. Like just by default, their energy is kind of like pushing other people away. They're not doing anything to actually do that. It's just the unconscious mechanics of how the energy works. A manifestor strategy is to inform, right? It's because their energy is pushing other people away that the strategy of informing just allows other people to feel at ease, to be in the know of what's going on and what the manifestor is truly trying to initiate. And if you think about it, it can kind of be like, oh, an opportunity for generators or manifesting generators to respond if the manifestor is aware enough to invite projectors in, and for there to be kind of any sort of connection between a manifestor and reflector in whatever way that makes sense. Okay, so every aura comes with a signature as well as a borrowed frequency or not self in the world of human design. The signature, when a manifestor knows they're in alignment, is peace. When they're operating their borrowed frequency, when they are hijacked, the signature is anger. And why does this matter for a manifestor? So when manifestors are operating through borrowed frequency, they're either bulldozing through other people or they are a shell of themselves. They tend to be wallflowers. They actually don't go out and initiate. They become just like a very muted version of their initiating prowess, likely because they were never educated or raised to understand what their kind of pure innate power allows them to do. But either way, either whether you're bulldozing or you are a wallflower, you're angry because you don't have the capacity to make the impact you know you can. Well, again, I'm not a manifester, but in talking with other manifestors, it's like they know they have this drive, this desire to impact other people. And oftentimes when they're working from a not self or a borrowed frequency perspective, or their energy is hijacked, they can't make that impact and they're angry. And a lot of manifestors, whether they know they are a manifestor or not, don't want to be told no, right? It's part of their mechanics. They're just pushing people away. So they fail to inform or refuse to inform so that no one can derail them. But in doing so, you never get your initiation off the ground. Your influence is diminished and it leaves you angry as a manifestor because no one is listening. No one is seeing your vision. And more importantly, no one is following that vision in order to see it through, right? So manifestors are here to initiate. They aren't necessarily here to always follow through. They need their time to rest. So they start preferably with a generator who can carry on the work once they're like, okay, I'm done. I've initiated. I've made my impact. I'm ready to go. If you never inform as a manifestor, you will always meet resistance, is because your energy is pushing people away and they feel uncomfortable. They're like, why are you bulldozing me? Or why are you sitting in the corner so angry when you're quote unquote not doing anything? I say that just from another person's perspective. Because a manifestor's aura pushes people away, it's why the strategy is so important. But as you learn to inform others, you can start to see the patterns of how people respond to your informing or your way of informing. And you can start to maneuver and modify and evolve the way that you inform people or the way that you inform certain people in order to get your vision off the ground. So, if you're a manifestor leader, here are some tips that you can, whether you're in a professional setting, some tips you can use. Set the stage with your team. Inform them of these concepts. You don't necessarily have to use the word manifestor or anything like that, but simply just saying, my best style or my most effective style is to inform. I'm going to inform you what's important to me. You can inform your team of your expectations, your communication style, and also inform them that you like to be informed, right? Strategies go both ways. So while manifestors are here to inform others, they like to be informed. So an example is the manifestor instructor that I have through my certification. She's always like, if you're ever just going to miss class, just let me know. It just helps. It kind of eases my energy if I know you're not going to be there. She's also has told us oftentimes it's like not necessarily asking manifestors questions. It's simply just kind of walking in, informing of like, hey, I've got something to tell you, and then communicating to them. It might also be really helpful for a manifestor leader to appoint a sort of chief of staff, preferably a generator, a manifesting generator, someone who can carry your vision forward in the times where you need to rest or you're not around, someone who can come back to you that you trust to take the reins, to use your vision, to push it forward, and also carry some of the workload when you're not around or you're resting. Generators and manifestors make a great pairing because it's the manifestor who initiates and allows the opportunity for the generator to respond and use their energy to follow the vision through. So if you're a manifestor business owner, got to take those same strategies, right? Find your executors. Maybe you have a business partner who is a generator or manifesting generator, or maybe right off the bat, you find yourself a VA, somebody who can kind of take the nitty gritty, the things off your hands so that you can be over here focusing on initiating things, whether it's in the market with products or with clients, with sales, marketing, whatever the case may be, so that you can really focus your energy on starting things, making an impact, and allowing someone behind the scenes to take care of the energy work that needs to get done in order to keep the initiation going. It might also be really helpful to initiate or to recognize your need for maybe a non-traditional schedule. So while manifestors are an energy type, meaning that they've got one or more motors defined, but that can actually be true for a projector. But an energy type where they have consistent access to energy, let's put it that way. Um, it might be helpful to recognize that from the get-go that not having a traditional work schedule might actually be best for you, but it's also recognizing what your patterns and your rhythms are in times of when your energy is really high and when you recognize that you need to take some breaks. So, manifestors, you are here to inform. Your borrowed frequency signature is anger. So, it's that signpost of when you're angry, taking a step back and saying, "Ooh, am I informing?" Or maybe not necessarily asking yourself a question, but um, the somewhere along the way, I must not be informing those who need to be informed. Another practical approach is for manifestors, regardless if you're a leader or a business owner, is when you've made the decision to initiate through your authority, whatever that may be, is to make a list of people of who you need to inform, and potentially even just putting a jot down of like, what is it that they need to be informed about? And then maybe even going further and saying, how do I want to inform them? So you've got a list, you can keep yourself kind of on task, and making sure that you're informing everybody who needs to be informed in order to carry your vision and your initiation forward. Hi, Cole. Okay, so going to generators or manifesting generators. So I always talk our because I am one. Our energy mechanics or our aura mechanics are open and enveloping. We are here to be magnetic. Our strategy is to respond. Again, kind of linking how the aura works, it's open and enveloping. So, one of the things about generators and manifesting generators is that we are the most susceptible to conditioning because of the way our auras work. Because we're open and enveloping, it's like that energy is always kind of coming into us. That's why it works to respond, is that we are here to be magnetic. Our signature, when we know that we're in alignment with our true frequency, is satisfaction. Talk to any generator or manifesting generator out there. You will know you're in the presence of an aligned generator, manifesting generator, at least at that moment, if they're just like buzzing with this, just like ooziness of satisfaction, of that they feel so, I'll say the word secure in their energy. They just feel like they're at home in their energy. The borrowed frequency team for a generator or manifesting generator, you can tell when they've been hijacked is they are frustrated. You will recognize a frustrated generator the moment you walk into their aura. It just gives off this like maybe intimidating kind of buzz, or just very powerful, like, I need you to back the F up kind of thing going on. Um, when generators are operating from borrowed frequency, or you know that they've been hijacked, is they're running after action. They're running after initiation, i.e., being conditioned as a manifestor, and they're shoulding all over themselves. Well, I should take this because it'll lead to this, or I shouldn't do that because of this. Instead of recognizing what lights us up, another way of looking at it from a manifesting generator standpoint is they're just busy for the sake of being busy. Like, I'm just doing the things because I need to do the things, and thinking that it's progress, when really they're not necessarily getting anywhere. They feel stuck, frustrated, and they're spinning. So why does it matter to know that a generator is hijacked? Well, it kills our magnetism, right? We are here to attract. And without our magnetism, opportunities will stop finding us and we actually lose our power. The moment that a manifesting generator or generator actually initiates something, it's like we're handing over our power to somebody else and being like, take advantage of it now because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just using the energy and for the sake of using it. We're automatically on someone else's terms the moment that we don't respond. And we burn out faster and we miss opportunities that are meant for us because we're so caught up in the things that we think we should do or the things that we think might lead us to satisfaction. And then we just become chaotic, frustrated, and we want to burn the whole world down. That's kind of what happens. Um, we're not really, as generators or manifesting generators, we're not really here to know what lights us up until it's presented to us. Um, right? And we're actually kind of here to be surprised by what our energy responds to versus what our mind thinks we need to do. We're designed to attract, to magnetize, and just pull things, opportunities, people, experiences to us. Um, we get hijacked as generators because none of us were raised to learn how to utilize our sacral in order to tell us if we have the available energy for something or not. And so we turn ourselves into manifestors because we get caught in the collective BS that says, well, if you think it, then you go run and do it. Or, if you've got something in front of you, it must be done. So then we as generators then go say yes to a lot of things. We get into it and either we slog through it because it's like, oh, I'm here now, I'm stuck, I just got to get out of this. Or we quit and then we feel terrible about ourselves and then we berate ourselves because we can't keep up with everybody else, or I have all this energy. Why am I not as successful as this other person? And round we go in our minds because it's like, well, we know we have all this energy, but for whatever reason, we just keep getting stuck and we keep putting ourselves in situations that our bodies are screaming no to, but our minds are saying yes to because, well, we're a generator, go and do it, right? That's oftentimes when we get hijacked by our own mind, regardless of type. It's not necessarily generators and manifesting generators, it's all types. All right. So if you're a generator leader, some of the practical things, as best you can, because I know a lot of times corporations aren't necessarily very flexible in terms of how we approach things, but working really hard to minimize that kind of player coach role. I don't know if anybody out there who's been in corporate and it's always this like, I'm a player and a coach. I do the work and I lead. Well, let's go to another example. Let's use football because it's starting, right? The NFL. What coach out there is getting out on the field and taking a snap? None, right? I was a swimmer. Not a coach in the 20 years that I swam ever got in the pool and was like, yeah, I'm going to take this one for the team. That's not how it works. Not necessarily sure how we got there in corporate America. Oh, that's right. Less is more, right? Um, you don't have to do anything. One of the things that I work on with clients, particularly if they're any type really, but generators specifically, is to do an energy audit. Like list out all the things that you're doing. What rank them 1 to 5, 1 to 10. It doesn't matter. 1 being not at all, 5 being my energy lights on fire. Rate them and then look at it. Like, what is it that you might be able to hand off to a team member? What is it that you might be able to talk with your leader to say, hey, is there anybody amongst my peers who might be able to take this? As a generator leader, again, strategy goes both ways. Get in the habit of asking yes or no questions. Get in the habit of allowing others to respond. Now, because generators make up 70, maybe close to 75% of the population, the majority of your team is probably generators or some form of generator out there. And so you provide the opportunity, whether they know it or not, to feel their energy inside, to understand, ooh, is this something I want to do? Or maybe it's not. And knowing as a generator leader that people might say no, that they don't have the available energy for it, and working with them to figure out, okay, what could be a viable timeline we can put together in order to get this done if the energy isn't here for it right now. Another thing to really think about is to get really creative with your team. To really understand the talents on your team, whether you know they're human design or not. You can usually tell what people are really good at, particularly if they're generators, they'll be lit up, right? Facilitate or have someone on your team facilitate, depending if you have the energy for it. Just listing out, doing an energy audit for the team, like listing out everything that you guys as a team do. And then working like, who wants to take this? Or who asking whomever owns it right now, do you really want to do this? Is this something that lights you up? Or are there parts of it that maybe someone else could facilitate? Just getting really creative with the work that you have. Again, sometimes I know that corporations aren't necessarily always that flexible, but if you're doing it in a small microcosm in your own team, maybe there's an opportunity to get creative. Maybe you become a case study within the organization that says, oh, hey, they figured out how to divvy up responsibilities way differently than we have ever thought before. Maybe you engage someone in HR to help facilitate it for you, right? That was my background. So that would be something I'd jump on like, hell yes, I absolutely have the energy to support you and your team to figure out how best to align work among the talent that you have. All right, if you're a generator business owner, energy audit, list all the things that you're doing right now in your business. Rate it 1 to 5. 1 being, ugh, would rather, don't want to do it. Let's just put it that way. Or 5 lights me up incessantly. If there's ones you don't really need to do in your business, get it off your plate. If there are ones that really are kind of essential to your business, then maybe you look to partnering with someone, and maybe you hire a VA, whatever the case may be, but delegating those tasks in order to get them off their plate, because the more a generator is frustrated and slogged down by work they don't want, the less magnetic they are. Um, and something that actually has worked for me a lot, particularly as a generator, is that yes, we are open and enveloping and we love the energy of others. We can get really energized and jazzed by the energy of other generators. We can kind of respond to the buzzing that they may be feeling. So as a generator, manifesting generator, business owner, or really tapping into your network of energized generators, doesn't have to be generators, but people you can turn to that when you feel limited or you feel stuck, is like just kind of feeding off of their energy to kind of jumpstart your energy in a different way. Projectors. The aura mechanics of projectors is focused and absorbing. And that is why the strategy of waiting for the invitation is so important, is because projectors, without even knowing it, can penetrate the aura of another person, particularly generators, because we are open and enveloping, right? Think about how those kind of two things together. If one is penetrating and absorbing, the other is open and enveloping, well, the generator is going to be taking in the energy of the projector and kind of being able to sense that they're in our aura, right? I don't know if a generator out there has been like, why do I feel like somebody is like in my soul right now? Some That could be an indication that a projector is just kind of focused in and honing in on you. Again, that's why the strategy of waiting for the invitation is so important, because it's telling the projector, this person is ready for me. Because the thing about projectors, actually, wait, before I get there, the signature theme for a projector is success. The borrowed frequency theme for a projector is bitterness. And it's why that bitterness matters is because that borrowed frequency convinces a projector they have to grind for the recognition and the invitation instead of waiting to be invited in. And the why that matters is when you're I'm going to say over efforting. I don't think that's a word. Um, but when you're working too hard to get invitation or to get recognition, when you are like dying for attention from somebody else as a projector, it blurs your insight. It blurs your ability to naturally guide the energy of others. And people can't see your real value because you're too focused, or they're too focused on you being like, what is this like frenetic energy that I can't make sense of? And when a projector is not correct, they actually can't effectively guide the other person. Because here's the thing about projectors, and sometimes this can be the hardest thing to 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 wrap your mind and your energy around, is that your signature theme is success as a projector, but it's the success of the other. Projectors are here to get the best out of the other for the other's benefit. That's how projectors find success. It is all about the other. It's about being able to guide others' energy effectively and when the other person finds success, or let's say it this way. Let's say a projector is guiding a generator. Let's say a projector coach is guiding a generator client. And that generator finds satisfaction in the work they're doing. The projector finds success by the generator finding satisfaction. right? So it's being able to kind of release and surrender to the other, because actually that's what's happening is that when a projector waits for the invitation, they're actually entering into what I call an energetic contract. So if a projector is partnering with a generator and the generator extends an invitation and the projector accepts, what the projector is accepting is the generator's energy. They're borrowing that person's energy in a productive way in order to guide their energy, in order to understand it, in order to guide it. That's why it's really important for projectors to wait for the correct invitation and not accept any invitation or recognition that gets pushed to them. Okay, so if you're a projector leader, connect with your teams one-on-one. Get a really rigorous one-on-one schedule together and hold to it as much as you can, or, from an energy standpoint of whatever makes sense to you, because projectors actually work better one-on-one. A lot of times when a projector is in a group, it's like the ability to focus in on one person becomes hard and overwhelming. I've heard from projectors that sometimes in group settings, depending on what that looks like, it can be hard for a projector to kind of like find their place or figure out what's going on. So being able to really intimately connect with each of your team members to understand what their talents are. Again, strategy goes both ways. Recognizing others and your teammates or your team members for their talents opens up the door for you to receive recognition and invitation as a projector leader for the same thing to come to you. Um, For a projector, it actually might help to hand over the reins to, again, kind of like a manifestor, is to have your own little chief of staff of someone who can maybe carry some of the energy that sometimes you don't necessarily always have, and can kind of rein in group meetings or lead meetings so that you have the opportunity to kind of step back and interact one-on-one with your team members throughout the meeting. And to include tensional breaks during the day, much like a manifestor, and we'll talk about reflectors too, is that not projectors aren't necessarily here to hold traditional work schedules. 9 to 5 grind isn't necessarily correct. And to be fair, it's not necessarily correct for everybody, even a generator. Yes, we're here to use our energy, but not necessarily consistently, and certainly not for things that we don't want to do. Um, and it could be something as simple as maybe just finding 10, 15 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, just to be by yourself, just to remove yourself from the aura of other people, kind of reset your own energy and just kind of come back to this centered of relaxed and recharged. Because being a projector, you are amplifying the sacral energy of any generator around you, which can lead you to feel really exhausted, unbeknownst to you. So, as a projector business owner, um, potentially looking at a one-to-one business model. So, working with clients one-on-one or niching down so specifically to work with a very specific type of client, so that if you do find yourself wanting to work in groups, I'm not saying that can't happen for projectors, but if you find yourself wanting to have, whether it's group coaching or group whatever, that you're working with one very specific type of client so that you can continue to kind of hone in on each person, because they kind of have a collective characteristics about them, for lack of a better term. Um, Again, and kind of going back to knowing that you likely won't follow a traditional 9 to 5 um, schedule, and finding one that works for you and your clients. So let's say you are a service provider in some way, shape, or form as a projector. Set specific business hours that don't necessarily always have to be consistent, by the way. It doesn't always have to be, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 11 to 3. It could change every day. But, to invite your clients to understand as a what your schedule is. So as a part of your onboarding process of just really setting the expectation of, hey, in order to optimize my energy and make sure that I can give you the best service possible, I ask that when we have questions in between our sessions or whatever the case may be, that you utilize the office hours. And here's what they are. This allows me the opportunity to recharge if I need to, but also be there for you as much as I possibly can so that we can coordinate the connection or the integration of our energy together. And then finally, reflectors. So, from an aura perspective, reflectors' auras are resistant and sampling. A lot of people falsely assume that because reflectors have so much openness in their chart that they are the most susceptible conditioning, when really they're not, because their aura by default is keeping others out, and they're sampling what's going on around them. Their strategy is to follow their lunar cycle. And the reason that happens is because when a reflector is born, let's say they're born on, today, August 14th, right? So from here on out, roughly on the 14th of every month, give or take, following, the moon isn't necessarily 28 days, but it's close enough. It's kind of like their cycle kind of resets. And so over those 28 days, they fall into a cycle of all the transits working in a certain way and making certain connections for them throughout the month. That's why it's really important for them to follow their lunar cycle, because they're not changing who they are every single day. They're just experiencing energy very differently every single day. Now, certain connections might make them experience, I don't know, generator energy. They might have a hookup with the transits and their sacral becomes defined, or they become a manifester because, a certain transit connects a motor to their throat. Again, they're sampling what's going on in the environment. And that's why it's helpful for them to follow the lunar cycle in order to experience their energy from all those different angles and make the most correct decision for themselves over the course of that. The signature for a reflector is surprise. The surprise of like, oh, I had no idea that was going on here. Or, oh, here's what's going on in this environment. The borrowed frequency theme for a reflector, or the not self theme, is disappointment. And when a reflector is operating from a borrowed frequency, they get lost in the energetic noise surrounding them, and they start identifying with the energy of their environment or the people in their environment instead of reflecting the truth of what's going on in that environment back to everybody else. And why that matters for them is that they lose their ability to sense what's off in the environment because they get so ingrained in what's going on versus being able to be resistant to it and just sampling it. It's almost like they energetically taste what's going on in order to figure out what's working, what isn't in the environment. So if you happen to be a reflector leader out there or know of one, make sure the environment is correct. All reflectors have open Gs, which means that it is very important for them that the physical environment is correct, because if it is not, nothing else will be correct. The people won't be correct, or the decisions that they make in that environment won't be correct. And that actually applies to anybody with an open G. I happen to have one of those. Um, and a reflector will know that they are not in the correct environment. It is this it's this uneasiness, this unsettledness. It's just this innate knowing of, oh, no, 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 no. This doesn't work for me. This is not the correct place for me. So as a reflector, and that doesn't mean it necessarily has to be an entire building. It can be a room in the building. Maybe it's your office. Does it work? Making sure that you might be able to work with the organization if you're in office to find a new space, or if you're working from home, if it feels like something is off, it could be the environment. You can also set the stage with your team that you need a little bit more time to process decisions. Now, I recognize that in the corporate world, 28 days may not necessarily always be feasible, but having a little bit more time is better than having no time at all. For a reflector who certainly has an undefined splenic system, making spontaneous decisions is not correct. So being able to set the stage with your team and or even your leader as a reflector leader to say, hey, would it be possible if I could at least have some time in order to make the most effective decisions? And again, you don't have to use the word reflector. You can simply say that, hey, in my past experience, when I notice that when I make really spontaneous decisions, it's not necessarily always the most effective for me. Or when I feel pressured to make spontaneous decisions, you might be open to even giving examples of when that didn't work for you. You might also want to think about collecting your own personal board of directors. So because reflectors are here to, again, kind of work through their monthly cycle in order to make the best or most informed decision, it also helps to have others that they can just talk to. It's not that in talking to others, you're looking for advice. It's simply that you're listening to yourself as you're trying to make this decision and just hearing how you process the decision from the different energy that you're sampling. So you can think about having maybe 3 to 5 different people who you know will be objective, who know don't necessarily always need to be a problem solver, who just want to sit and listen to you and allow you to process so that you can hear what you're saying in order to make the most effective decision. And much like a projector or even a manifester, depending on generator, finding someone who can be your chief of staff, right? Someone who can kind of take some of the things off your plate if energetically it's just not working at the moment, but someone that you can lean on, kind of your go-to, your right-hand person, to carry some of the mission forward if your energy isn't there for it. As a reflector, that also allows you to sit back and observe what's going on in the team as they're kind of having a discussion, and maybe even setting the stage with your team of saying, hey, I actually operate best when I have the opportunity to take a step back and look at the whole picture. So I'm going to have Cole, you're here. Cole here facilitate this meeting so that I just have the opportunity to kind of sit back and absorb what's well, maybe not absorb, but reflect what's going on in order to determine if we're on the right track or there are things that we need to adjust in order to be the most effective team. So if you're a reflector business owner, all the things that a reflector leader can apply. Having your board of directors, potentially having those behind the scenes who can take some of the energy work away. Another thing is to find a group of reflectors. There are quite a few out there on Facebook or Instagram, but I've heard from reflectors that being in a group or a community of reflectors is actually really invigorating. It's awesome to be around other reflectors. They only make up 1% of the population. Now, while it's a pretty significant amount of people, it's not compared to generators, right? Or the others. So I've heard from a number of different reflectors that it's helpful to be among a community of reflectors in order to really talk about the experience and learn from one another because they are such just a different energy type. All 3 other types are guided by the sun. Reflectors are guided by the moon. So they do have kind of a different energy that they reflect while they're here. They're really reflecting the energy of the moon and how it changes throughout the month, which is actually pretty beautiful and pretty um, enlightening to see the moon reflected on Earth through people. And then set aside some time to do a client audit work. So similar to generators who might do energy audit works, is being able to look at your clients and taking that, because what reflectors are here to do is reflect what's working in the environment. So if reflector business owners have a slew of clients, of taking some regular time in their business to sit back and look at what's going on across their client base. Whatever your model is, whatever your business is, you have the opportunity to take that and say, hey, might there be other products, other services, other ways that I can support my clients differently based on what I see is working in our work, not only individually, but collectively, and then making adjustments and reflecting that back to the clients, whether that's one-on-one or whether it's a group, whatever, again, according to your model or whatever you're doing. But being able to allow you the opportunity to really use your gifts and look at things from a 30,000 foot view and saying, this is what's working in this environment or this what isn't. Again, kind of going back to the theme of today is, what is the borrowed frequency theme of each type and why does it matter? Small recap is manifestors, the borrowed frequency theme is anger. Generators and manifesting generators, the borrowed frequency theme is frustration. For projectors, bitterness. And for reflectors, it's disappointment. And why that matters is because it is a signpost that you are misaligned to your energy. Because it is one of the simplest things to tap into your type and strategy in order to start shifting how you approach the world and in some ways how the world responds or approaches you. And it's an opportunity because you literally have to do nothing to ignite your true frequency other than follow your type and strategy and authority, but we didn't talk about authority today. Those are the three pieces that allows your unique energy to come shining through. So for me, I'm a 1-3 pure generator. I'm here to respond. And the moment that I spontaneously respond to what life brings me, that's when my channel of power, transformation, correction, and acceptance all come spewing out of me without me having to do a darn thing in order to be of service, my incarnation cross, i.e., my purpose, and what I respond to. So that's why it's so key to understand your type and strategy, what they mean, the mechanics behind what they mean, and what living through your borrowed frequency means so that you can start to shift and approach the world in the way that you are meant so that the world can see your beauty, your power, your magnetism, regardless if you're a generator or not. When anybody, any type is operating from their true frequency, they are magnetic in their own way and operate from the vantage point of here are the very unique gifts that I am here to bring to the world. Please experience them in a way that's most meaningful for you because I am operating correctly. Thank you all so much for joining in. Laura, Cole, always great to see you. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them. But thank you so much for joining. This is stuff that lights my soul. This is the stuff that lights my energy, is to be able to reflect back to other people their truest frequency and allow them the opportunity to see themselves and come back home to themselves in order to share with the world their beauty, their gifts, and everything they were here to show us. So happy Thursday, and I'll see you guys next week.